There's a quote from Gilbert White that floods are an act of God, flood damages are an act of man. So that's what we're trying to produce here, or convey here, is that people do need to take responsibility for their own risks, but we do recognize that the changes in this law are going to have serious impacts within communities throughout the state and throughout the nation. Thank you. Do you want
so
to?
at this point, we still have over a half hour left where Bill can take any questions that you have on the information that you have today. So if you have questions for them.
One thing before you start asking questions, I might say that we didn't set up for the portable microphone. So if somebody asks you a question, could you repeat it up there so the viewing audience can hear what the question is?
Certainly. Yes, sir.
It's going to sound a little odd, but it's what we face most every week when we have people come in, especially when the maps change. We have more and more people that are required to have flood insurance as a result of the map change. A number of those people expressed to me and to the staff that this is a result, mapping may not be a result of increased risk, but the need for increased premiums and a broader pace because of the losses from the recent 4 or 5 years, starting with Katrina. And as best I can do, I try to explain, no, it's very scientific, and we have a lot of tools that are used to create this mapping, but there is some, I'm sure you've heard of this, people, maybe I'm saying it more direct than most people who are not here, but we get hit with that all the time, and if you could give us some tools on how to handle that, it would be helpful.
And the question has to do with people saying that the new mapping has less to do with increased risk than it does the need to put more people into the insurance fund and pay it off. Let me talk a little bit about the history of the mapping. Is that we've had our old paper maps, they've been around for 30 years. The studies are 30 years old. And in the late 90s, people started getting together and saying, well, the technology has changed. We've got the ability to have more interactive mapping, the geographic information system. And the studies are frankly old. So every flood study is limited by the period of record that you have to go on. You've got 30 more years of record. You know, you've got a more accurate study. So it was a consortium of real estate interests, banks, insurance interests, environmental interests, and people, emergency management folks that all came together in a task force and said, we need to modernize our maps. Congress passed this. President Bush actually submitted this in 2003, and Congress passed the map modernization program to spend $1 billion over 5 years to modernize the nation's flood maps. The need wasn't $1 billion. We didn't know it at the time. The need was more like $3 billion. But within New York, working with FEMA, we tried to prioritize the areas that we thought were most at risk, and the way we did that is we looked at population, we looked at the pace of development. This is a rapidly developing part of the state, and these maps are going county-wide, so it's one of the reasons why Dutchess County did get elevated above some other parts of the state. In general, not necessarily the case everywhere, but nationwide with map modernization, about as many properties were removed